There is absolutely zero doubt in my mind. Rachel Meghan Markle was a semi-expensive yacht girl, and she knows it.
Many of you have seen this picture already. You see that there's Meghan with her Cajuna hat.
This time, the freeze in royal circles did not come from a palace statement or a front-page leak. It came from Sarah Ferguson herself, and the second those words reportedly left her mouth, the mood changed fast. What was said did not sound like light gossip. It sounded like a spark dropped in a room full of dry timber, and suddenly Meghan Markle, Prince Harry, and Buckingham Palace were all pulled into another storm. It allegedly began in a quiet setting, almost too casual to seem dangerous at first. There was a small conversation, a familiar Fergie grin, and then one reporter supposedly caught the line that sent everything spinning. Meghan was Andrew's first client. That single phrase lit up headlines in no time. Social media went wild, old gossip came rushing back, and talk about Meghan's so-called yacht days started spreading again with serious force. What made the whole thing hit harder was who it seemed to come from. Sarah Ferguson is not some random outsider talking spicy for attention. She has been pushed out, pulled back in, embarrassed, forgiven, and talked about for decades, so she knows exactly how royal whispers travel. That is why people did not dismiss it. They leaned in because if Fergie really said something that loaded, many assumed she knew exactly what kind of damage it could do. The reported reaction was immediate. Harry was said to be shaken. Palace aides were rumoured to be rattled. The firm, famous for hiding everything behind polished silence, suddenly looked like it had a crack running through it. And the main question started echoing.
Meghan Markle was introduced by Sarah Ferguson to Prince Harry. He said Miss Markle was a close companion to Prince Andrew. Meghan Markle was introduced through Marcus Anderson to Sarah Ferguson.
Everywhere. What exactly did she mean by first client? Why bring Meghan into Andrew's orbit at all? And why now, when every old royal wound seems one sentence away from reopening? This was not treated like ordinary chatter, and that is because the names involved made it explosive from the start. Meghan is already a deeply debated public figure. Andrew carries one of the darkest shadows in modern royal history. Put those names together, even through rumour, and the whole thing instantly starts sounding bigger, dirtier, and more dangerous. That is why people in Windsor and far beyond kept asking the same thing. Did Fergie accidentally say too much, or did she know exactly what match she was striking? What happened next only added more heat. The weekend had looked normal on the surface. Charity lunches, perfect manners, tight smiles, that polished royal circuit energy everyone knows so well. But underneath all that rehearsed elegance, whispers were already moving. Word of Sarah Ferguson's alleged comment had reportedly reached a few insiders before the wider public even caught on, and once that happened, the room for damage control got a lot smaller. At first, many supposedly did not believe it. Fergie has been through enough tabloid chaos to understand how one reckless sentence can blow back hard. That is exactly why some people thought there had to be more to it. During a private event in Mayfair, surrounded by old aristocrats, social figures, and curious journalists, she reportedly made another comment that landed heavily. With a knowing grin, she allegedly suggested Meghan's first royal connection was not Harry.
According to people, she got started her yachting days, and she never stopped, really. I don't think any of her boyfriends knew about it, but Meghan Markle was known as a hardcore yacht partying person, ready for anything.
She was a yacht girl. That's right. It's mentioned in the book. Meghan used to entertain as a yacht girl. Now, I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying it happened, but I am saying Harry knows it.
The room, according to the rumour trail, went very quiet. Someone reportedly laughed, but it sounded nervous more than amused. The line did not fade away. It stuck in the air, then spread quickly through texts, gossip chats, and newsroom whispers. Soon the phrase, Andrew's first client, was reportedly bouncing around private conversations and media drafts, gathering more attention with every retelling. Harry, according to one insider account, allegedly did not want to believe it. Royals hear rumours all the time, but this felt different because it seemed to be coming from inside the royal orbit itself. By midnight, what could have been brushed off as random chatter was reportedly turning into a real credibility mess. Royal correspondents were piecing together timelines, social overlaps, and old elite event rumours, all while palace handlers reportedly stuck to quiet, no comment responses. Behind those polished doors, the real question started to simmer. Was Fergie exposing something she believed had been buried, or was she settling an old score in the messiest way possible? Either way, people felt this was only the start. Long before the titles, the interviews, and the Montecito image machine, Meghan Markle was building a life around ambition, networking, and reinvention. Hollywood is not kind to people trying to break through. And by many accounts, Meghan understood that game well. Between smaller acting roles, red carpets, charity events, and public appearances,
Jeffrey Epstein was also Harvey Weinstein, very prominent. There were members. Meghan Markle was just one of the working girls for Soho House. Call girl, working girl, escort, whatever you want to call it. That's what she was.
She built her profile carefully. She smiled, stayed sharp, and kept moving upward with purpose. People from those early years often describe her as polished, focused, and socially smart. She knew how to enter a room and make people remember her name. She moved through circles that included entertainment figures, wealthy hosts, and high-end event regulars. None of that is unusual in Hollywood, but once royal controversy enters the picture, even normal career networking gets turned into something darker by the rumour mill. Among the social scenes often mentioned in gossip from that era were luxury yacht gatherings and invitation-only events where money, status, and opportunity mixed together. These spaces were glamorous, flashy, and full of powerful people, but they also came with whispers. Not because every guest was doing something wrong, but because elite circles always generate speculation, especially when later scandals cause old photos and old stories to resurface. Rumours have long claimed Meghan attended some of these gatherings while growing her brand and expanding her network. To be fair, there is no verified public proof showing any improper tie between Meghan and Prince Andrew through those settings. What exists is a fog of unnamed sources.
This woman knows that she's in trouble with Fergie because she knows where Meghan Markle's bodies are buried. She knows that Meghan Markle has been yachting. In fact, they had friction because Meghan had originally set her sights on Prince Andrew, but she lucked out with the idiot Harry. Not in a million years did Meghan think that she was going to score Prince Harry. She thought she was going to score Andrew until Fergie put a stop to it.
Recycled online claims, suggestive images, and half-formed stories that keep getting dragged back into the light. Even so, that fog was enough to give Fergie's alleged remark real bite, because in royal drama, people often react to the picture in their head long before they look for facts. That is what made the comment so potent. It did not just stir gossip, it seemed to rewrite Meghan's pre-royal timeline in the public imagination. To tabloids, commentators, and online royal watchers, the angle was irresistible. Here was a former actress who rose into the monarchy, now being loosely tied by rumour to one of the most controversial names the family has ever carried. True or false, the story had serious power simply because of how it sounded, and Fergie, of all people, would know the force of that. To understand the shock properly, you have to look at Prince Andrew's place in the royal story. He was once treated like a protected prince of privilege, moving through wealthy circles with total confidence and access. For years, he seemed to live in a world of luxury, status, and influence. But that image cracked, then collapsed, and the public view of him changed for good. His associations, public controversies, and deeply criticised interview turned his name into a permanent source of trouble for the monarchy. By the time Fergie's alleged comment surfaced, Andrew was already widely seen as one of the royal family's most damaging figures. That is why any rumour linking Meghan to Andrew, even loosely, hit like a bomb. It did not feel like a normal jab. It felt like dragging her into one of the darkest royal chapters of the modern era. For palace strategists, that kind of overlap is the last thing they want. Meghan is already polarising. Andrew is already toxic. Tie them together in one messy narrative, and the press will run with it every single time. Andrew stayed silent, tucked away from public life, but that silence did not shrink his shadow. If anything, it made the whole thing feel heavier, because once his name enters the conversation, the temperature drops and the questions get sharper. So when Sarah Ferguson reportedly leaned in at that off-record London gathering, carrying that mischievous look she is known for, and said, "Let's just say Meghan was Andrew's first client," the room reportedly felt the shift instantly. The line may have sounded casual, almost playful, but the implications behind it were serious enough to scorch reputations. Within hours, the alleged comment had leaked. By the next morning, journalists were circling like hawks, pulling apart every word, every timeline, and every possible connection, because once every syllable starts getting dissected in public, people stop asking what was said and start asking what else might still be waiting in the dark. So what did Fergie really mean by client? Was it a sharp jab at Meghan's calculated networking? Or was she hinting at something more serious connected to Prince Andrew's troubled past? That uncertainty only made the whole story explode even more. People online quickly pointed to old photos and leaked images, saying there was already enough visual material to keep the rumours alive. Fergie, for her part, did what she often does best. She neither fully confirmed nor clearly denied the alleged statement. Instead, she slipped into that familiar blend of charm, vagueness, and carefully timed expressions, giving reporters those knowing little smiles that seem to reveal everything while actually revealing nothing at all. Inside palace circles, though, the reaction was said to be much colder. Communications teams reportedly rushed to separate senior royals from the fallout, while whispers spread that Fergie had gone off script again. But beneath the frustration, one idea reportedly lingered. She knew exactly what she was doing. Sarah Ferguson has spent years balancing confession and chaos, and she understands how to drop just enough to keep everybody talking. That is why many saw this not as a slip, but as a deliberate spark. By tying Meghan's name to Andrew's already damaged reputation, Fergie did not just revive old gossip, she changed the whole tone of the royal conversation. Meghan's silence suddenly looked more loaded, Harry's reported anger seemed more understandable, and the public kept waiting for an answer that never came. Then another question rose fast. Why now? In royal life, timing is rarely random, and every major revelation seems to come with a motive attached. To understand why Sarah Ferguson might release a line like that, you have to look at her own history with the monarchy, a story filled with embarrassment, reinvention, exile, and survival. Fergie has never been far from scandal. From her infamous tabloid years to financial controversies and public apologies, she has lived through the full cycle of royal disgrace and comeback more than once. Each time she was pushed out, she found a way back into relevance, smiling, polished, and fully aware of how public attention works. So why drag Meghan into it? Some believe it was quiet revenge, a subtle payback from a woman who spent years treated like an outsider by the same institution that later embraced Meghan. Others think it was a move to reclaim influence, a reminder that Fergie can still shake the royal narrative whenever she wants. And then there is the media angle. She may simply know how to stir controlled chaos to boost her own visibility when public attention is drifting elsewhere. There is also the theory that she believed she was helping Andrew by redirecting scrutiny away from his name and toward a new distraction. Whether that makes sense or not, one thing is clear. Fergie understands timing better than most people around the monarchy. She survived years of public humiliation by mastering selective truth, feeding the press just enough while never giving away the whole story. This may have been one of her boldest moves yet. In one sentence, she pulled global attention back to herself, reopened royal wounds, and pushed the palace into another round of damage control. Whether it came from strategy, desperation, or pure impulse, Fergie once again proved she knows how to create chaos, and that raised the next big question. What exactly did she hope to gain by setting this whole thing on fire? By the morning after the alleged comment spread, Buckingham Palace was reportedly in quiet crisis mode. There was no formal statement, no dramatic briefing, only that heavy wall of silence the palace always seems to hide behind. But behind the calm exterior, the pressure was said to be intense. Advisors moved between urgent meetings. Phones rang constantly. Senior courtiers tried to contain a story that had already slipped well beyond control. Every part of the royal family suddenly seemed exposed, and nobody wanted to be the first to react publicly. Prince Harry, according to one source close to his circle, was deeply upset. The rumour had embarrassed him, but he also reportedly knew that any public outburst would only make the situation worse. Meghan, according to the same wave of speculation, stepped back from view, avoided cameras, and delayed appearances, while her team quietly reviewed possible responses. That tension inside the Sussex camp reportedly felt severe, not only because of the accusation itself, but because of where it came from. Fergie was not some faceless critic or random online voice. She was family. That made the alleged betrayal cut much deeper and gave the whole scandal a more personal sting. Meanwhile, senior royals were said to be keeping their distance in public while watching every development in private. Damage control became the priority. Advisors tried to steer media attention back toward official duties and charity events, but the story would not disappear. The phrase, "Andrew's first client," kept hanging over the headlines like smoke that refused to clear. Inside palace corridors, resentment reportedly started to build. Some blamed Fergie outright and called her reckless. Others quietly wondered whether she had been pushed into something bigger or even set up. But the feeling that reportedly united them all was fear. Fear that another Meghan-centred controversy could reopen the same raw wounds left behind by Andrew's downfall. The monarchy depends on control, and this time, control seemed to be slipping again. By dawn, aides were said to be rushing into urgent meetings carrying folders and tense expressions while pretending the system was still perfectly steady. The old palace rule of never explain, never complain suddenly looked weak because the silence was starting to sound louder than any statement they could have made. Inside private offices, damage control reportedly moved with sharp precision. No comment responses were drafted. Senior royals debated whether to publicly distance themselves or simply wait and hope the story burned out. But the real problem was no longer just optics. It was trust. Fergie's alleged remark did not come from outside the royal circle. It came from within, and that made the fallout feel even worse. Harry, according to whispers, was torn between confronting Fergie directly and letting advisors handle it. Meghan stayed largely out of sight, and that silence only fed more speculation. Even palace staff reportedly noticed the shift. Doors closed faster. Voices dropped lower. Every smile looked practiced. Every word seemed carefully weighed, because one wrong sentence could turn into the next global headline. Courtiers tried to pivot attention back to official royal work, but the public was not easily distracted. By then, the story had already grown teeth. Every appearance, every handshake, every photo op carried the weight of unanswered questions. The royals seemed to be hoping the scandal would pass like so many others before it. But this one felt different because the threat did not seem to come from outside. It appeared to be growing from within the family itself. And as the dust tried to settle, one thing remained clear. What started as an alleged offhand remark from Sarah Ferguson had turned into a wider crisis over loyalty, image, and influence. Meghan's silence still loomed heavily. Harry's trust seemed shaken, and the monarchy was again left fighting ghosts it thought had already been buried. Maybe that is the pattern with this family. Every time they try to lock down the story, something slips through the cracks and rises again. So now the question is not only whether Fergie went too far, it is what else might still be waiting in the shadows. Because if this is what can be said in public, imagine what is still being whispered behind palace walls. In our previous video, Prince Andrew and Fergie were left stunned after King Charles made a move that sent royal loyalty into chaos. If you missed that one, Go watch it next because it connects directly to this tangled royal story and adds even more context to the fallout unfolding now. This is Star Spotlight, where the truth still glimmers, even in the shadows. If this story pulled you in, like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next royal shock, because in this world, nothing stays private for long.